Have you ever wondered why, despite all the self-development books, motivational videos, courses, and trainings, you still feel like you're not good enough? Why does every new day start with the feeling that once again you haven't done something, haven't had time, haven't pushed through? Why is it that the more you strive to be better, the worse you feel? You seem to be doing everything right. Reading, meditating, setting goals, watching your habits, pumping yourself up. But it's as if the emptiness inside only grows stronger. Maybe you're already on the verge, tired, exhausted, and it seems that self-development, which should have saved you on the contrary, has made things worse. And if you're feeling this, you're not alone. And this video is for you. Self-development promises us much: success, confidence, financial freedom, inner harmony. It is presented as a universal cure for all problems. You feel bad? Take care of yourself. You can't do it? Pump up a skill. You don't feel confident? Implement practices. You're not successful? You just haven't worked on yourself enough. Everything seems logical. Everything is rational. Except there's one sneaky mistake in that logic. At the very beginning, you're led to believe that you're already broken. And all you will do from now on is endlessly try to fix yourself. You stop being you and become a project. You're not living but building someone else out of yourself. And no matter how successful you are now, you're always in the mode of need more. One more book, another marathon, another technique. You get caught up in the productivity rut, in the cult of the goal, in the chase for an ideal that no one has ever seen, but everyone is striving for. You begin to feel that every moment of your life should be useful. If you're not working, then you should be learning. If you are not learning, at least listen to something in the background. Even rest becomes not rest, but restoring resource for the next spurt. You start to feel guilty if you just lie on the couch. You're ashamed of procrastination. You're afraid of being without a plan. You begin to evaluate every step and every action and think, is it good for your growth? And here comes the worst part. You lose touch with yourself, with the real you, with the one who just likes to laugh, do nothing, be illogical, do something without a goal, without benefit. You turn into an efficiency machine. Everything inside becomes part of a big project called the ideal self. Only the ideal keeps slipping away. Because as soon as you reach one level, the next one immediately appears. And again, you feel insufficient. Again, not there. Again, you need more. You start comparing yourself with others, with those who earn more, who have a better body, who are more successful. And you can no longer be happy with what you have, because you constantly see what you don't have. The self-development that was supposed to set you free becomes a prison. Golden, fancy, with beautiful covers, but a prison. Where you are the eternal student, where you always fall short. And this does not mean that self-development is evil. No. It has powerful potential. It gives tools that can really help. But it is important to understand, a tool is not a goal. The idea of self-development becomes dangerous when it stops being a support and becomes a source of pressure. When you work on yourself not out of love but out of fear, not because you want to, but because you are afraid of falling behind. Not because the path is interesting, but because you hate the point where you are. And here's the important thing. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be productive all the time. You don't have to do something useful every second. You have the right to just be, without improvements, without upgrades, without a goal, just being, and that's enough. You can read books, but not because you need to grow, but because you find it interesting. You can develop habits, but only if they make you happier and not squeeze the last bit out of you. You can set goals, but not to prove your worth, but because you truly want to. Self-development should not be a punishment, but freedom. Not a sentence, but a choice. Not an escape from yourself, but a way to get closer to yourself. You have the right to stop. To think, why am I doing all this? For whom? What am I trying to prove? What will happen if I just stop chasing the ideal? Maybe it's nothing to worry about? Or maybe this is the moment when real life will begin. Maybe it's not another checklist you need. Not a new scheduling system, not a 5 a.m. morning ritual. Maybe you just need to give yourself permission to be yourself, to hear yourself, feel what you really want, not what Instagram dictates. Maybe you don't need to become the best version of yourself, but learn to accept the one you already have. The paradox is that when you stop fighting yourself, that's when real growth begins. Not out of fear, not out of guilt, not out of a sense of inferiority, but out of love, acceptance, and interest. You don't have to control everything. You don't have to be an example. You don't have to live up to someone else's expectations. You can just be yourself. And it is when you give yourself this right to let go, to breathe, to be imperfect, that strength awakens in you. The real one. Not the one you pumped up with books and courses, but the one that was always there. You just didn't notice it in all this rush. Sometimes the boldest step in self-development is to stop developing yourself and start feeling yourself, to remove the noise, to look inward. And maybe for the first time in a long time, don't ask yourself, what else do I need to improve about myself? But simply say, I already am, and that's enough. If you feel like self-development has started to break you, don't be afraid to take a step back. It's not defeat, it's realization. That's maturity. Because real growth isn't a journey up an endless ladder. It's about coming home, to yourself, to simplicity, to a life where you can laugh, rest, make mistakes, dream, and be yourself again. Not the best version of yourself, but just you. And this may be the biggest victory. Gradually, you begin to notice how the taste for life returns. Not suddenly, but in small things. When you walk without headphones, just looking around. When you watch a movie not for motivation, but for the feeling. When you go to bed and don't scold yourself for the fact that the day was unproductive. You recall what you were like before all this race for the best version. When you were just living with your dreams, fears, joys. This person is still inside you. He doesn't ask you to be perfect. He asks you to be real, to stop running away from yourself. Self-development should not be abandoned, but it can be made different, warm, soft, alive. Without a whip, without guilt. Stop being a project, become a person again. Someone who has the right not to know, not to be able, not to want. This does not make you weak, it makes you alive. Sometimes the best step is not a new productivity system, but simply saying, I'm tired, and allowing yourself to rest, to meet with a loved one, to be in silence. Because you are not a mechanism, you are a complex, subtle, sensitive person. And no spreadsheet can replace your inner truth. When you stop breaking yourself, you start moving easier. Without violence, without exhaustion. Simply because you are no longer fighting with yourself, but you are moving with yourself. You do not do it out of fear, but out of desire. You develop not for the sake of status, but for the sake of interest. You find a balance, not perfect, but real, with room for rest, laziness, spontaneity. Self-development becomes not a struggle, but a journey. Without haste, without comparison, without masks. And in this acceptance, real energy is born. Calm, deep. It is from it that your true movement appears, and it is your true growth.